Hello everybody, second time lucky. Hopefully we are now live. Just a few technical difficulties there. So
yeah, we're good.
Good. We're back for a Christmas special. So we thought we would whip round and just let you all know what we've been up to. So Simon, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a few gremlins in the works. Plenty been going on this year. It's been a strange year, I think, for everybody. But I guess in terms of what I've been doing, I've obviously got my new books coming out, but I'm sure everyone's heard about it.
Hey!
How about your book, Simon? Tell us more.
No. Oh, there you go. Yeah, look, Dave's got a copy there as well. Awesome.
Oh, yes. Hold on a minute. William's got a copy as well.
I've got one as well, Lisa.
I'll send you both a copy.
Got a copy.
Well, one was sent.
I'll tell you what I have got though.
Pass with it.
Such a cow.
But yeah, I mean that's the main thing that's been going on for me, and just more work. I've been doing lots of coaching stuff and connecting with new people in groups and learning more. I feel it's interesting because when I don't know about you guys, but when I sort of look at where I was maybe 12 months ago compared to now, I feel I've learned so much more. And a lot of that comes from just interacting with people and having conversations and hearing people's perspectives, things like that. I think that's one of the best ways of growing. And so I feel like I've done a lot of self-development and personal growth over the last year. But it's been a funny few months, but being sober's helped me get through it for sure.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It's gone quick though, hasn't it, in a weird way? Even though it feels like the longest year ever, it's also been a fast year.
Yeah, that's true. It has. Some parts have been quick, and I think you just get into a new routine and a new kind of normal.
Yeah.
And it's helped a lot of people. There's lots of people I know who, because certain things haven't been open, it's made life easier to quit. So I think you can come at it from one of two ways. You can actually think, well, I'm going to use this to my advantage and see and help it, because it's harder to go to the shop. You can't go to the pub necessarily. So quite a few people have actually quit during lockdown, and they're quite proud of that. I mean, at least that's a good memory to have of it.
I think that's true. I think a lot of people have found it quite beneficial from a quitting perspective, because one of the big things about quitting is all the socializing, and how do I socialize sober? There's no socializing, so it makes it a lot easier. But I think on the other hand, people who are drinking a lot of them are getting into a bit of a pickle, because there's just no barriers and people are just spiraling. And I don't know about you, but I've noticed my book sales have gone up quite a bit since lockdown. And it's always kind of a mixed blessing, because it's obviously nice to sell more books, but it generally means more people are getting into difficulties. Yeah. For the same reason, the book sales go up in January, because people get hammered over Christmas and have a miserable time of it and want to quit.
Yeah, you're right. And the funny thing was, when the lockdown started, I don't know about you, but my book sales actually fell off a cliff in March, and they just went like this. And then it picked up again after a couple of months.
Yeah, that's exactly what
I have on my book sales, though. Nothing. I haven't got one. But anyway.
Did it, Alex? Our journal did all right, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. What were you saying, Dave? Sorry?
Yeah. No. I have noticed, because people have been working from home a lot, and where they finish their Zooms and their phone calls and whatever, the old afternoon drinking's been coming in a little bit more. And it doesn't take long, does it? You start to get into that habit and whatever, and it's downhill. So, yeah. But for me, I've still maintained my suntan from going to Cyprus for a little while.
In the garden, because Simon's got his shorts on. I wasn't going to tell everybody, but I might as well. So is it sunny down there in the south?
No,
it's always sunny in the south.
It's the English Riviera.
We haven't seen any sun since June.
Well, it always rains, doesn't it? Even if it's sunny. So
yeah, it's not been actually that bad. I don't know. Look, I'm not getting onto the weather, because Lisa always says that I talk about the weather, and I do. It's weird. Something not right.
When we do our podcast and then I wait for it and she's like, what's the weather like? I'm like, no, really?
I can't help it. I don't know what it is. I think it must be like one of those awkward, like, you know, when you've got awkward silences. I always have to fill them, and I don't know what to fill them with, so I just talk shit.
It's a very English topic of conversation, the weather, isn't it? It's a nice, safe topic to be talking about.
I was
Yeah,
just gonna say
tea and the weather.
Yeah, especially.
So Christmas tips then. So who's going to start with some Christmas tips?
Cancel it.
Start with one.
No, I'm joking.
I actually put a post on Instagram and it said the best present is being present, and I think that's so true.
Yeah,
I agree. You know what, Simon? On my first Christmas, I remember thinking that it was a little bit flat, and I kind of changed that on my second sober Christmas to actually the word peaceful rather than flat, because it is different. There's no doubt about that. Being sober at Christmas is, if you've never done it before, it's completely different. But I think, like you said, being present for everybody, it's such a good one to say that, because it's just, you know, spending time with your children and your family and actually listening and just being there without that blur or falling asleep through the movie that they want you to watch. It's just so lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And yeah, it's a money can't buy gift. Just actually being there, making memories that you actually do remember.
That's when you wake up in the morning, Christmas Day, and you haven't had a skinful the night before.
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing worse, is there? And the kids all running around at 6 o'clock in the morning. Where's Santa been? Santa been? And, you know, he's 27, my son. And I said to him, it's a bit old. But, but, you know, I can't break it to him. But, you know, and I remember about 3 Christmases ago, Em's dad turned up and I'd already had a few wines. And by 2 o'clock, I was plastered. And the stress in the house, and we hadn't even had dinner. And he said to me, have a coffee, Dave, have a coffee. I was like, what? I don't want a coffee. And, you know, the arguing that it saves you, it's crazy.
One thing I think is a really good thing as well, a lot of people have traditions at Christmas that are based around drinking. And I think consciously making new sober traditions is a good idea. Like we would always drink Baileys, for example, at lunchtime and all these sort of things. But actually saying, well, you know, out with those, I'm having some new sober traditions. Maybe it's going for a run on Christmas morning or walking the dog as a family or whatever it might be, but making new traditions and actually throwing the old ones in the bin.
Yeah, it's like, I know that every Christmas Day, since being maybe 22, 23, one of my traditions would be taking a nap. And I was convinced, even up till 2 years ago, I was convinced it's because I had an early start and not because I downed 2 bottles of Prosecco and the Baileys and the red wine that I had with the meal. You know, I've had an early start, I need a nap. And like, funnily enough, I didn't nap last year at all. I was actually like, wait, this has been a lovely day. Remembered it. So yeah, new traditions, I'm definitely for those. As long as I think that's a good in the morning. I'm a bit worried about it this year because my list.
No, I was thinking about this earlier though, that part, it's absolutely chucking it down. Part of my, maybe a Christmas tip is to prep the food early, because part of my drinking was around prepping the dinner, because it's always an excuse for me to start drinking. So maybe start prepping the turkey, the potatoes and whatever, like when you get up in the morning, because then if you have recently just given up drinking, then it's another trigger you haven't got to sort of think about.
Yeah, that's a good one. I know I always recommend to people in any situation really, but particularly in the run up to Christmas, if you're keeping a journal, actually think about it ahead of time and write down any people, places, behaviours, any situations that you could potentially drink around, and put some boundaries in place. If there's an uncle coming over who triggers you emotionally or triggers you to drink, then it's okay to say no and do your thing. So just assess, almost doing like an audit ahead of time and thinking about it is sensible.
I think people who've stopped drinking during lockdown, one of the things that I've heard a lot of is people being sent or given alcohol as presents because they haven't yet disclosed they've stopped drinking, and that can be quite triggering. And there was a post actually in our group the other day, and somebody had been given this bottle of alcohol, and the support from people was just like, give it a neighbour, give it away, tip it down the sink, sell it, you know, like it was just.
I love the tip it down the sink.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we had somebody do that on the sober sessions? I just think you get such a good buzz out of doing that. It's like you feel really defiant, don't you? Like, just, you know, you kind of cracked it when you can just pour it away and think, yes.
It's funny as well. Sorry, Dan. One of the things that we had a big debate about this, because giving it to a neighbour, you know, how does that sit with being sober? So I actually think pouring it down the sink is probably the right thing to do, but you could re-gift it, I guess.
I want to ask you guys that actually. Would you buy alcohol for somebody as a gift?
No, I don't.
I do.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Bet you do.
No, I remember I was. Sorry?
It's funny how we all sit differently with that, because I wouldn't. I feel like I'm going against what I believe in by giving it, and I will scour and scour for something else. Because I think what was lovely about when I stopped drinking is actually receiving gifts that weren't alcohol related. I was like, oh my God, nobody just associates or identifies me with that anymore.
I wouldn't assume though, Lisa. So like I wouldn't buy somebody I kind of half knew, or, you know, a teacher or someone like that, a bottle of something. I wouldn't do it that way. But if like my auntie, who I know enjoys wine, I would go and choose her a favourite wine, because me not buying it, she's not going to have a bottle less. She'll just go and buy her own.
Yeah.
You see, I do that because my mum and dad drink, and they really enjoy wine. They drink quite a bit, and there's no way they're going to stop. And I could buy them. I could rack my brains for months to think of a present, and they're not going to particularly like it, but they genuinely like getting a bottle of wine. So I kind of think it's not. If I don't buy it, they're not going to sit there and not drink. They're just going to buy their own.
No, mine's actually going through the whole process of it. Actually going to the aisle where the alcohol is. And there's people there reading the label for where it comes from, whatever. I used to read it, see what the percentage was. And then it's just that whole sort of process of people's trolleys filling up with booze and whatever. And I'm standing there, you know, thinking, oh, what do I get? I want to spend as little time in this aisle as possible. And I just feel a bit uncomfortable. So I try and come up with, you know, different things, just protect myself a little bit, I suppose.
Such a subjective thing, isn't it? And it's the same with like alcohol containing desserts or food that's got alcohol in but maybe cooked out, and then that's very different to food that's got alcohol added and not cooked out. I personally, for example, wouldn't have liqueur chocolate which has got the alcohol untreated, because I'd be triggered. I just can't see the point. Like, I don't really want it. I didn't ever like the taste of that shit anyway, so why would, look, I'm the swearer tonight, so why would I? But then I would quite happily have steak cooked in red wine if it was cooked out. That wouldn't trigger me at all. Some people would be like, no, if you're doing that, you're not alcohol free. But then again, I think if I accidentally drank alcohol, I wouldn't be as devastated as some people. I'd just spit it out and go, oh God, switch it back. So maybe it's all like personal choice, and there's no, you know, who said that 0.5 and above is wrong and 0.5 and below isn't?
Exactly. There's no rules. What's the beauty of it?
Alcohol free.
That's good to think about, Alex, as well, what you're saying about if people maybe drink by accident. So that's a good tip of like not to throw everything away. You know, if you do pick up somebody else's glass by accident, I know we said it on the Instagram Painting the Town Sober's little advent that she's doing, but maybe, you know, like put a charm around your glass so you know which is your drink, so you're not likely to pick up one. Because I have heard that people have done that and then thought, oh, well, I've had it now, so stuff it. But it's kind of, we've got to think realistically, haven't we, that if that happens, that's an accident. You've not done it on purpose. You don't have to throw away all your hard work and your sobriety because of something like that. The same with the dessert. You know, we had one of our ambassadors was saying that she'd had an incident with the tiramisu, and it really sent her under. She went into a bit of a panic because she'd had it and was like, oh my God, what shall I do? But she'd received support from people and was all right. So yeah, don't throw everything away because of an accident.
Yeah, I've accidentally had alcohol before. You know that night nurse you have when you've got a flu or something? It's like 20% alcohol. It's like having a glass of sherry. Yeah, because it was years ago and I wasn't feeling too good and I had, and it was like, oh, that's familiar. And I checked the label and it's like 20% alcohol.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's like having a glass of port.
Yeah,
chuck that on top of your flu.
About alcohol, that doesn't it, William? Because if they're having to put 20% alcohol in night nurse to knock you out, then surely wine.
Yeah.
And also, when you do, you mentioned about 0.5 drinks, which always creates a bit of a debate.
Yeah,
but like burger buns, but actual burger bread buns are 1.5% alcohol content.
Must be
burger buns.
Yeah.
Because of what, Alex?
It must be because the yeast has fermented.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've heard of like banana, but
yeah, bananas.
Buns.
Yeah.
Well, the bacteria you've got inside your digestive system creates alcohol. That's why when they do tests for drink driving, it's never 0% blood alcohol because everyone has nominal amounts of alcohol in their bloodstream. So if people are being extremely strict, it is impossible to be alcohol free because that bacteria within inside you is excreting small amounts of alcohol. But you just need to bear in mind that there does get to a level when you're drinking alcohol that it will kick off a physiological reaction. If the blood alcohol spikes too quickly, then your brain will react to it. And that's where the problems come in. But to be honest, even then, you don't have to, if it's accidental, you don't have to exacerbate the problem by throwing a load more alcohol down your neck. You just stop then and don't have any more.
I know this is like going completely off, and now you're just going to be like looking at me like I'm weird, but I've been breathalyzed since I stopped drinking. I've been dying absolutely. Like, you know, when you fill out those forms in the dentist and they say how many units of alcohol you drink a week. I love putting 0. I'd absolutely love to be pulled over and breathalyzed and go,
yeah, me too.
I don't drink.
With me, I'd just be pulled over and I'd just point at my number plate.
If I was a policeman, I'd pull you over just for having that number plate because I think you were trying to fool us.
Yeah. But should we touch on alcohol-free drinks? Because there is a big thing. And I always say, like, if at any point they are triggering at all, stay well clear. But I also know people that they really help them in the beginning, you know, like the odd one here and there, and it takes away that urge and whatever. And I've never struggled with them really at all, you know. And I know it's a grey area about it, but what do you guys think, you know, about having like a no secco with Christmas dinner or an alcohol-free beer? Or
I think it's useful. I think people need to be slightly careful because in this country, alcohol-free is 0.05%. In America, it's 0.5%. And that's a difference in alcohol. If you're talking about blood alcohol levels potentially spiking, that can be enough. Sorry, I'm just plugging my charger. That can be enough. But actually, of more concern, there was a study done where they got previous heavy drinkers. Okay, so these are problem drinkers, dependent drinkers, and they gave them alcohol-free lager, and they measured a spike in their dopamine after drinking this alcohol-free drink. Okay, and it was kind of misinterpreted because people were saying, oh, it makes you, you know, you can get the same buzz by drinking alcohol-free, because people were thinking dopamine is what makes you feel good. Dopamine doesn't make you feel good. It makes you feel a bit uptight and makes you want to do something. And what I think those studies actually suggest is if you've got a long-term association between, say, drinking and lager, if you then have an alcohol-free lager, it can trigger off a physiological reaction. Your brain can start trying to counteract the alcohol it expects to go into your bloodstream. So I think if you're someone who drinks very heavily and you're usually drinking lager, switching to an alcohol-free variety not for everyone, but it can cause problems for people. And so I think if exactly what has just been said, if you're in any doubt about it, don't have it. You don't need it. There's lots of other, you know, soft drinks out there that you can drink. You don't have to have alcohol-free varieties of otherwise alcoholic drinks.
So in that instance, if your brain expected it, could it release dynorphin, which obviously brings things back to which tries to get things back to homeostasis, and but you've not had the hit, so to speak. So actually, you end up feeling really down and depressed potentially.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah,
Wow.
I think if you're anticipating it, that's enough to trigger, because obviously the human brain can't differentiate between a vividly imagined experience and a real experience. So I think if you're going through enough of a process that your brain is expecting a massive onslaught of alcohol, it's already going into hyperdrive, ready to counteract that. So you could potentially go through sort of some kind of withdrawal, even though you haven't had the alcohol.
It's almost like placebo, kind of.
Yeah,
same
exactly.
sort of placebo then, isn't it? So like your body's just waiting in anticipation and countering it before anything's even happened.
Yeah. What I'm not clear about is the degree or the background to that study, whether they told people there was alcohol in it or they were clear it wasn't. And I don't know if that would make a difference, because I think if you're drinking something thinking there's booze in it, that might be very different to if you're drinking something knowing full well there isn't alcohol in it. And I don't have all that detail on the study, unfortunately.
I guess again though, if you're somebody who is quite happy having you 1 or 2 a week or 1 or 2 a day and it's not affecting you, again, then that doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think if you've done it and it's worked, you're safe, you're fine with it.
When I first stopped, I had them quite regularly. I was actually telling a lady today, I used to have, like, you know, most days I would have 1 beer, alcohol-free beer, and then at weekends I would definitely have them. But now I can't remember the last time I had one. I think it's just got to a point where, well, I do remember the last time I had one. It was when we had a Prosecco, wasn't it, at yours, for our little Christmas. Me, you, and Joe had a little Christmas cheers. But other than that, I just wouldn't be bothered. I'd rather have a cup of coffee, as you all know.
Can I just say, Simon, guys who's watching this, Simon was buggering about with his Christmas tree. Now, it looks like you've got a hairpiece on there. Don't show everyone your Christmas tree, because it looks a little bit...
But then you'll see my shorts as well.
Oh, shorts.
This looks like something out of Anne Summers, trust me. I mean, look at that.
Look.
You get that out of Funfair, mate.
I think it's a lovely Christmas tree. I'm feeling very festive.
What is it made out of, Simon?
Look, it's all lit up.
Well, it's a pink thing underneath. What actually is that? Is that Michelle's?
Oh, is it?
It's illuminated.
Yeah.
It glows in the dark.
Yeah.
I'll put the Christmas tree down here where it belongs.
Can I just tell you about alcohol-free drinks? One other thing, and the same lady I was speaking to about this, actually, if you do like them and you are okay with them, recommended one from Dry Drinker called Twist, and it's like a Bailey's alternative. I've never tasted anything as real as the real thing in my life, so if you are triggered, don't do it. But if you're not and you want a replacement, they're pretty good. I felt like I was having a Christmas Bailey's when I just sipped and tasted.
I've seen those. I haven't tasted it. I've heard they're really good, though.
They are. They're incredible. I mean, I'm sure it's a long, long time since any of us have had a drink, so I probably just can't remember. But to me, I couldn't tell the difference. So I guess, like I say, if you trigger, you wouldn't, because they were.
Yeah. Someone actually that's a good segue, actually, Alex. Someone actually asked how long we've all been sober in the comments. So who wants to go first?
I've just done 18 months. I'm the baby now, I think. Hey,
well done.
What about you, Lisa?
I'm round about the same time as you, Simon. Are you coming up to 900 days? I know this because 2 people in my group are the same.
Oh, I haven't looked at the days for so long. It's like 2 years and I don't know, 2.5
Yeah,
years.
one of my friends, Kathy's around the same, 894 days on my app. Oh, you can't see it there. But...
Not that she's counting.
Oh, that was the hours. No, I very rarely look at it. No, it's on the app. I've not counted the hours myself. I'm
going to look now.
You know what I do just want to say about that, actually, is so this is my 3rd sober Christmas, and in truth, I don't ever want to drink it. It doesn't cross my mind. I don't want one, wouldn't think about having one. There's nothing that I can imagine would cause me to want to drink, and I'm not saying that in a like showy off way. What I kind of wanted to say that for is to give people hope in a little way, you know, if they are struggling, that you can kind of get past that, and eventually you won't want one. You won't think about it the same. Like Nate, for anybody coming up to the first one, it can seem so overwhelming. It's on the television, it's on the adverts. You can feel like everybody around you is drinking apart from you, and it can, you know, you can feel quite isolated. But actually, that passes and it does get easier, and eventually we'll get to that point like where you say you're not counting anymore, you're not thinking about it the same. And I don't think about it the same anymore. I find it hard to think of tips because it doesn't cross my mind anymore.
Do you know, I did a post a few days ago actually about giving up now rather than waiting for dry Jan, because it's you can get a Christmas and New Year under your belt, and it gives you such a boost, you know.
How good would that be?
It's like I was getting stuck in some mince pies the other day, and I thought, I'll wait till Monday until I stop eating these mince pies. And I thought, you know, that's what come to my mind then, was actually there's no real time to actually give up, is there? It's like, because you're always going to put it off. There's always going to be something. There's people say to me, oh, but I've got a wedding next month and it's my birthday and I've got a works bash on, and there's never going to be a good time.
Yeah, and someone said to me the other day, actually, should I wait till January or should I quit now?
Yeah.
My answer was now. Why wait?
Exactly. But that psychological thing that you've already done the Christmas and New Year must give you a big boost, you know. So next year would be your second Christmas.
Yeah.
Then that means, doesn't it, Dave? Because didn't you stop in a January?
Yeah, I stopped on the 7th of January, yeah.
You're coming up 2 years.
2 years in a couple of weeks. I relapsed yesterday, but apart from that, it's 2 years.
Did not.
I've checked mine. It's 887 days.
How many hours? If you don't know your hours, you're tapping as good as Lisa's.
Oh, no, it hasn't got hours. It's 2 years, 5 months, and 3 days. What's yours?
I've got that app as well. I've got 2 apps. I'm so greedy. I've got that one as well. That's the I Am Sober one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's prettier, that one. I like that one.
You don't even know how long you've been sober for, I bet.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I quit in February 2014, so it's 7 years for me in this February.
Wow.
So, yeah.
15 years on here, is there, sobriety?
Apart from my night nurse incident.
Did your wife mind about her, or? Yeah. Another thing, Christmas tip that I thought about earlier was to maybe download some films, because you know when the afternoon's like and you had your dinner and that's when you've had your wine at the table and that, and you can get a bit edgy because you're a bit bored. And I think sometimes if you plan a few films, sit with the kids, it just takes your mind off things.
Yeah. You don't like films, do you, Lisa?
You do me. I don't. I hate waiting for the end to find out.
If you download it, you can wind it forward.
Yeah, you know what? People enjoy a story unfolding. Lisa just like, I'm waiting for the end.
It frustrates me. You know, like they just frustrate me, films. Yeah, they do. They just annoy me.
There's one of the comments I'm interested. So this isn't about films at all, but Jackie, who's in one of my groups, actually, her and her husband John both quit together.
Oh, amazing.
Jackie's posted, after 7 months without alcohol, I now want alcohol. Can anyone speak to that?
Fade in effect bias. Go on, William.
Yes, talk to Jackie, William.
So there's a tendency among human beings to look back on past events more positively than they were when we actually experienced them. Okay, so this is a universal human trait. It's not just to do with culture. Everybody looks back on past events more positively. So when you quit drinking, as it fades into the past, you tend to look back on it through rose-tinted spectacles and start to think about how lovely it was. And this is actually one of the big tips for Christmas. Because for people who have stopped and coming up to their first Christmas, what you start thinking about is, you know, that first glass of champagne or wine or whatever, and all those very pleasant drinks. And what you forget about is waking up at 4 a.m. with a blank of half the day of what happened, or waking up with the hangover, or waking up in the middle of the night feeling anxious and all the rest of it. So that's what it is. You need to just bear in mind when you're moving through time, you look back on past events more positively. And if you think, for example, I mean, how many drinks do you drink on Christmas Day? Probably quite a lot of them. The vast majority of them, it's almost just like an extension of your arm. You're not even particularly aware of it. The first one or two, you might suffer from the illusion of really enjoying. But the majority of them, it's just topping up and continuing to drink without really thinking about it. But when you think back on it, you don't focus on the majority of drinks that you weren't particularly bothered about. You don't focus on the waking up in the morning feeling wretched and awful. You don't focus on the arguments you had when you were drinking. You just focus on that 1% of your drinking career that you thought was actually enjoyable. And that I think that's probably my biggest tip for Christmas, is just be realistic. Don't get sucked into the nonsense of, the mulled wine in front of a roaring fire or all that ridiculousness. Just think about the reality of what it is. It's a drug that you happen to drink instead of smoking or snorting or injecting. And it makes you feel slightly dulled before wearing off and leaving a feeling of anxiety. The majority of the pleasure in Christmas drinking is the fact that you're tired and hungover from the previous drinks. So you have one to make you feel better. If you're not drinking, you don't need that boost because you've already got it.
Yeah. I'm glad
that sober fishy said, God has spoken.
Yeah, that's...
I love it.
I'm glad that fading effect bias doesn't happen with ex-husbands. That's still Sorry, I'm not trying to.
Do you know what? I always say that to people, because you're in a relationship with drink, and when you finish it, it's like William said before, it's the fantasy that you miss.
Yeah.
And when I think back to some of the relationships I've had, I think, we did have some good times, really. You think of the good times, but in fact, 90% of it was terrible. And it's good to remember that. And also what we say about winding forward, how you're going to feel the next day and the next day and the next day. Because, so it is the first couple of drinks, isn't it? And then it all goes bandy.
And another question, Catherine said, could you give some tips for people who are early on? I gave up on the 1st of December, looking for some motivation to get through Christmas. So who would like to take that one?
You know what? One of the things that I was just going to say, which kind of relates to this question, is I was speaking to a lady the other day, and she was saying, I just can't, she's early days. I can't imagine just feeling like this for the rest of my life, waiting for it to pass. And I think it's really important to recognize that you're currently thinking ahead with your mindset as it is right now. But over time, your mindset changes. If we all felt like we do in the first 30 days forever, then we wouldn't be able to sort of get through it, probably. It does change the way you feel about alcohol. You get stronger, you get more resilient, you get more tools in your toolbox. You don't feel how you feel now in 6 months' time. So I think that's really important, is to realize that right now, when it's new, you're learning. It's not how you're going to feel when you get through. And that's how I always try to think of things when they're a first. This is the first time I've done it. Once I've done it, and then I will be able to handle it better next time. So that's one little tip. Just kind of bear in mind, it's the first time, get through it, and it's never as bad as the feeling of, am I going to miss out? When you're sat there on Christmas Day, last Christmas, I didn't sit there thinking, oh, I wish I had a drink now. It was the build up to Christmas that made me think I would want to drink.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I think journaling, getting things out of your head and down onto paper so they don't expand into stories. Somebody sent me these. They're cards with the names of our different feelings on, and I'm always encouraging people to write down their feelings and actually label their feelings. And I think in the first month, that's a really good thing to do. So I'll just pick one, which is happy. Look.
Oh, I like that one.
Or
you know what? I don't like that one. Gratitude as well. I know it's really cliche and we talk about about this a lot, but I think remembering all the amazing things about being sober, we can focus on all the bad things and what we're missing out on and this and that, but actually, what are we grateful for? Waking up without a hangover, being present for friends and family, clearer skin, shiny hair, there's so many amazing things about being sober. Like, I know, again, cliche, like, but the gift that just keeps on giving, it really does. And I always say this, everything good that's happened in my life is because I've been sober, everything. And I think if we can remember that and maybe write them down, and if you're struggling to find things to be grateful for, one thing, just think of one thing in the morning to be great, and it really, really does become more natural to you then. But yeah, being grateful.
You know what I say as well, sorry William, is that there's some people that say, oh, I'm only a week sober or a month sober, and I always say, no, you are a week sober, because a month ago you may not have thought about you would be in this position. You know, each day is a bonus, and what Alex said is true. It's like being in an apprenticeship. It's like starting a new job, and you're at your comfort zone. You don't know what you're doing, and you're learning each day, and you're learning coping strategies and how to do things. And that's what I say about Christmas Day. For me, Sunday was a big day for me for drinking, because I would say, you know, I'm going to start the dinner at 12, and that was like, actually, I'm going to start drinking at 12, you know. And that was always, I'm just going to have a beer, and once I'd have one, I could get away with, you know, go in the bedroom, drink some wine that I'd hidden and stuff like that, and be blotto by 4 in the afternoon. So it is right at the beginning. It is an apprenticeship of learning how to find the coping strategies and how to do. And after a while, like any job, you do it, don't you? It's like driving. Yeah, oh, how am I meant to do the clutch and the gears and look in the mirror and do this? But you don't think about it now. Like you saying, Lisa, it doesn't even cross your mind.
Yeah. It's exciting as well. You can look at it as something quite, who are you without alcohol? What is Christmas like? If you've been drunk every Christmas, like, see it as, and this sounds so like, but as a bit of an adventure. Like, what is it like? What's it like waking up? What's it like cooking the dinner? What's it like going to bed without, without drinking? It can be exciting. It doesn't have to be miserable because
you can have fun.
Not drinking.
You can have just the same amount of fun without, in fact, more fun. You know, like, it's so nice waking up and not knowing you have not offended anybody, or at least if unless you wanted to. You know, like, you might have offended someone, but you'll have done it with a clear head. You know, like, it's that lack of, you know, there's
You really do think you're an idiot.
Yeah, I really do think you're an absolute beam.
It's worth probably mentioning it a bit about cravings as well, because I think that feeds into what you were saying, Lisa, about trying to keep positive, because people often think of cravings as just something that happens to you and you just have to sit there and wait them out. The cravings are actually a very specific thought process where you start to torture yourself with the idea of having a drink. It's always a fantasy. It goes back to what I was talking about before, how it's the idea and not the reality that drags you in. But what you're doing is almost, so a typical one is Christmas Day. So I don't know, everyone turns up and they, well, probably not this this year, but the drinks start being poured and you're not drinking. So you start to think, oh, it'd be so nice if I had the drink, and wouldn't it taste nice, and I'm not involved in this particular thing. And suddenly you're obsessing about something that you want to have and can't. Okay, so what you're actually doing there, you're torturing yourself with the thought of something, like if you were really hungry and you were thinking about your favorite food or something, but suddenly you're not enjoying the family, you're not enjoying the day, you're not enjoying any of it, because 99% of your attention is caught up with like an internal argument stroke tantrum. And that's the problem. And then at that point, the drink is almost irrelevant. It's a placebo. Because if you have a drink, the big benefit from it isn't the effect or the taste or anything. All it's doing is negating that unpleasant little internal tantrum. Now, if you're keeping really positive and seeing alcohol as an enemy and thinking, oh my God, this is brilliant, I get to enjoy Christmas without having to throw this muck down my throat, actually you can completely bypass the whole craving thing as well.
And the way to prove that as being true is if anyone's ever been to the shop and they've bought their booze for the evening and you've had a feeling of a sort of a release of relaxation just from picking the bottle up. That proves that it's the anticipation of it as opposed to the act of drinking it that you're craving. And what William said is exactly right. And that used to happen to me. I'd buy the alcohol and suddenly I'd relax. Suddenly I felt a sense of excitement.
And that also explains as well, very interesting, why people can go all day not drinking and then really crave it in the evening, because they know they're not going to drink during the day. They're at work, they're doing whatever, and they're not going to drink. So they're not torturing themselves by thinking, oh my God, what would it be like to have a drink now? But when the clock hits 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever, and that's their drinking time, and suddenly that's all they're thinking about, that's how that aspect happens. Because people often say, I'm fine during the day, but... And that's the issue. And people even go all week with it. So people won't drink during the week, and then Friday night comes and they have to have a drink. It's all to do with that craving process.
Can I ask you a question, William?
No.
So, can I ask you a question, Lisa? What percentage, William, would you say was habit as well?
So,
say that they always call it the opening. Everyone has their own opening hours. And mine was probably from 5 o'clock till 8. And if I got past 8, 8:30, I didn't care. It was always that slot. So what part of that is habitual?
So I habit for me, and this might be purely a definition thing, but I don't see any kind of drug taking as habitual. And let me explain why. So when I'm on holiday, for example, in Cyprus, what I like to do is have breakfast and then put on my swimming trunks and go and sit outside.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
When I get home and it's January, I don't have a massive problem. I have no desire to get up in the morning, have breakfast, put my swimming trunks on and go and lie in the garden. Okay. But habit is just repeating behaviour because there's a reason to keep repeating it, like having breakfast or doing whatever it is. With drugs, it's not habit, it's addiction. So it's a very different thing. And people may look at it as habit because, oh, I don't drink till 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. But I don't see it as habit because it's not driven by I'm doing it because it's beneficial. And one of, I think, the biggest problems with calling it habit, we can change our habits. So yes, I have breakfast when I'm on holiday. Most of the time I don't bother with breakfast and I switch from one to the other with no problem at all. So if you're saying to yourself, I've got into this silly habit with alcohol where I'm drinking 2 bottles of wine every night, all I have to do is reduce it to 1 and then I'll get into the habit of drinking 1 a day. That's fine, I can do that. But of course you can't, because it's not habit, because you're drinking not because it's beneficial, but because when 1 dose wears off, you need another dose to alleviate the after effects. So I think it's important that we differentiate it between what is habit, i.e. you're repeating behavior because there's a benefit to it, and addiction, which is you're doing it because you're compelled to do it, either because of psychological or chemical reasons.
You're scratching an itch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Over time, it does become the psychological over the physical, because the physical addiction wears off more easily over time than the...
You mean when you quit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyone who's quit for anything over a few weeks, it's purely psychological at that point. It's looking at it as, I would really like to have this. And like a typical one, and it's a great time of year to talk about it, Christmas isn't the same without drinking. So then you're not going to enjoy Christmas, and instead of actually just getting into it and enjoying the day, you're worrying about, should I have a drink, shouldn't I have a drink, what would it taste like, aren't I miserable without it? And suddenly that's where your focus is, that, as I say, that internal tantrum about whether I should drink or not.
Yeah, there's a couple of tips I've got for that actually, and one of them is when you start thinking about, I'm not going to enjoy whatever celebration it is, we'll go with Christmas because that's where we're at. I find it really useful to write down everything you do enjoy about Christmas or said occasion, because actually you'll find that alcohol, if you write it out, you'll find that alcohol's actually a really small part of what you look forward to. Whenever I ask anybody about what they enjoy about Christmas, they go, oh, I love the dinner, I love the weather, I love the time with my family, I love, and
the weather.
Time with the family as well. The worst part of Christmas.
And then the other one is, you know, if you do get that voice coming in, you do have to remember that is just thoughts. It is just psychological. And it just, rather than entering into that conversation and torturing yourself, like you were saying, William, just tell it to shut the F up and bugger off. You don't have to talk to it.
No, and the other thing to bear in mind, I said this a few times, there's something in the region of 8 billion people on the planet. Okay, roughly half of them don't drink alcohol, be it religious reasons or cultural reasons, or it's just not available. 4 billion people live their lives. Okay, they might not all celebrate Christmas, but they have birthdays and weddings and other religious festivals. They go, they dance, they have fun, they laugh, they live their lives without alcohol. It's only in the West, where we drink alcohol a lot, that we suddenly find we can't enjoy occasions without drinking. And what's that if not drug addiction? I cannot enjoy this because I haven't got my drug, which enables me to enjoy it.
And in the West, less than 5% of people don't drink. If you take out the religious reasons, less than 5% of people. We're the sober rebels. We're the minority.
I noticed that. I like that, Simon.
Right, we need to deal with Jackie because John, who is Jackie's husband, has said, Jackie is still not convinced by William's explanation of fade-in effect bias. I'm sitting next to her. Jackie hasn't had a drink for 7 months and has been happy about it. Does anyone, apart from Jackie, think it's a good idea for her to drink alcohol tonight? And then everybody's saying, don't do it, don't do it. How are we going to convince Jackie that it's a bad idea? But
what about when you wake up at 4 a.m, unable to sleep? I think you'll be pretty certain then that it was the wrong decision. I think that's the problem with it. People always regret doing it and they never regret not doing it.
Yeah,
that's
true. Day one tomorrow morning, right before Christmas. Think how much that's going to piss you off.
You know what? Nobody that I know has ever woken up in the morning and thought, oh my God, I wish I got pissed last night. Nobody. I don't know anybody that wishes that. It just play it forward. It's just not a good idea, Jackie. It's not.
it won't be one drink.
Woke up and said, I'm glad I got pissed last night when...
Yeah, nobody's ever done that. Oh, I'm loving this hangover today. It's wonderful. My ex-husband would have said that just to prove he would have actually said that, I swear.
Not that he's ex.
Yeah, exactly. You know, while we're on this, can I just say, Kerry Gormley's just commented on here that she's got a bottle of champagne as a present at work for doing so well. What would you tell her to do with that?
Give it to someone who deserves it, Kerry. And I don't mean somebody nice. No, get rid of it. Tip it down the sink.
That's a good one to tip down the sink, I reckon.
Well, you could shake it up and
yeah,
just cork out and just spray it out the garden.
Love our acting then, Alex.
Yeah, what do you think, Dave? What should she do with it?
Give it to someone.
Yeah,
that's what I think. Give it to William's mum.
She'd love it.
With a copy of his book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That is a good idea.
So have they read your book, William?
No.
My mum's not read mine either.
Definitely not. I won't touch it. No.
Has anyone got any tips for the evening then? Once a day's gone and there could be relatives staying and who like a drink. My tip would be you don't have to stay up.
I was going to say exactly that.
Get up with it and that. Just go to bed because...
It's early night and enjoy Boxing Day. Horse racing's on Boxing Day. It's always a good watch. Get a peek in. Can't wait, me, for Boxing Day.
Why? What are you watching?
The horse race, and I always have some bets on Boxing Day.
Well, they'll be doing it. I don't. Oh, fine.
Awful! Don't tell me that.
And obviously, watch out for cross addictions like gambling.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is an annual thing for me. Okay.
But you know what? I think the self-care and the, you know, having a bit of time on your own. If you've struggled all day, or you know, if you found the day difficult, even in the day, to go upstairs and just have half an hour out and recompose yourself is a really good thing. You know, rather than struggling and.
What about getting like a bit of a sober buddy? If there's anybody in any of the groups or posting in the groups and things like that, because sometimes just getting it out and just saying to somebody like, I want a drink, or my family are driving me insane. You know, there'll be loads of people in the same boat, so to speak. So kind of stick with your groups and talk about it. Let's communicate, you know, even on Christmas. At the end of the day, it's a day. It's just a day, one day.
Yeah, right. 12 hours awake.
Yeah.
Well,
saying that you have...
then you're like 16 hours awake. Because if you've got a 4-year-old like I have, I reckon he's going to be up at 4 a.m. So there's no way I'd want to be hungover on that day. Geez, no way.
In my program, we're actually doing a Zoom call on Christmas Day evening, because I thought, to be honest, it'll give me a break from the family, and I quite enjoy it. So we're doing a Zoom call.
You know what, Simon? We've got a Christmas Eve and a New Year's Eve Zoom going on as well that people can join. We'll put the details in the group. But yeah, we thought they're quite tough times out there for people on their own. So we've got like a sober lounge on Christmas Eve and New Year.
And there's a thing you've just raised there. I know we haven't got long left, but like loneliness at Christmas as well. People who are on their own, especially with what's going on at the moment. Any tips for that?
I think that if you've got technology, and clearly those people who we're talking to have, use it, because, you know, I've seen things all over, even people like LinkedIn, people on LinkedIn are doing things like, does anyone want a check-in Zoom? And there's loads of these kind of random Zoom meetups. There'll be other sober people in the groups that you're in who are in the same boat. So I would just put a message in and say, anyone fancy a Christmas Day night Zoom chat? You know, people are up at all hours, aren't they, all across the world now? So let's kind of check in with each other. There's no harm in doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, our DMs are open as well. I mean, like, I always make sure I check mine as well. And you guys as well. If anyone's feeling like they're struggling, or even just a little chat for 5 minutes, it can make all the difference, can't it? It can make a difference between someone drinking and not. And in a way, we got a bit of a responsibility on our platform, haven't we, to help people? So
yeah, definitely.
I think that's important for people to know, that they can reach out.
Should we put our details in the chat afterwards, if we all put on what we've got going on? Because I think between us, we've got quite a bit going on over the Christmas period, so nobody has to be on their own. And audibles, of course, guys.
Yeah, we've got some really good books on Audible that you can listen to.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Another one, Simon, you put on a great post, didn't you, about all the podcasts as well, which I've put a link on my bio as well, if people want to access that. All things like that, innit? You know, when I say about having half an hour on your own, you can just chuck the headphones on and shut your eyes and listen, and it just makes you feel like you're not alone with it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think, going back to what you said, and I know it's kind of repeating it, but it is just one day, and don't build it up in your head to be anything more than what it is. It's the 25th of December. It is one day. You know, it's no different than sitting there today without a drink, unless you build it up to be something more.
The thing I say about that, though, Alex, is as well, people would struggle on Christmas Eve as well, because for me, that was a big night for me. I weren't so much a New Year's Eve person, it was Christmas Eve. So it's about forward planning as well, isn't it? You can have an early night on Christmas Eve.
Sage your house. Get some sage going.
Do you know what? Just the first year I ever saw Lisa around her house on her personal Instagram with a lump of sage, I thought lump of sage. I thought she'd actually caused a house fire. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. I thought, this is my best friend, and she's running around the house with a stick on fire. And then the year after, I did it.
It was not like that. It was a very spiritual moment. You've made it sound really unnice, and it was actually a very wonderful moment for me. I cleared all the negative energy out, which I'll have to do again now after tonight.
Can I just confess, I actually saged my house the year after, because Lisa...
Yes, you did, and all, you know. You did. Yeah, create new traditions. I think we said that before, but and give Father Christmas hot chocolate.
Yeah, we don't want any piss Santas flying around. It's not on.
I think the other thing on the back of that as well is just embrace the JOMO, the joy of missing out, not the fear of missing out. Yeah. You're not missing anything.
Nothing. It can be amazing. And
Can I just say what you said there, Simon, as well? As a kid, I always remember Christmas afternoon, my mum and dad always falling asleep. And it was such a crap part of the day for me.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know, what are we going to do now? We had all these toys and that. But, you know, that's another thing. You're not going to be nodding off, dribbling into your flipping mince pies.
That's so true, because when you were a kid, Christmas morning was just excitement and presents. And then the afternoon felt like a boring Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did, with the rubbish film.
Yeah, and the parents were letting us down because they weren't present.
And they wouldn't play with your presents.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not those parents, are we?
That's a brilliant. I'd never thought of that, Dave.
Yay!
You can be a 100% parent, permanently there.
We can watch Columbo the Christmas special with the kids.
What more could you
That's
want?
a great one.
Or Gremlins
I love
2.
Columbo. The other people don't know who it is.
Gremlins always reminds me of Christmas.
Does
always.
me.
You know, the beginning bit in the snow where he goes to the bank. It gives me a weird feeling, that film. Anyway, on that note.
I'm just seeing if there's any more questions.
Gremlins.
Tamara says she loves sage. I don't know what the sage thing's all about.
Yeah, go on to Lisa's personal Instagram, she'll show you.
I'll be sure to check it out.
I don't think it's on there anymore. I'll let you know. It's good. I've got Palo Santo now, I think it's called. It smells a bit nicer.
We better round it off, guys. Is there anything you want to finish with?
Just have a lovely Christmas, everybody, and, you know, have fun, relax, enjoy yourselves, and, you know, you'll come through this, and by New Year's you'll be thinking, what was all that fuss about, and what a wonderful sober Christmas I had.
Yay!
And reach out support when you feel you need it.
Yeah, and also Dry January is a fantastic month as well. You know, everyone's on that, and I just think I'm certainly there if you want to message if you're in trouble with anything or just want to say hello or whatever. I'm sure we'd all agree with that. Have a lovely Christmas and New Year. I'm sure we'll be chatting in between.
Don't be on your own. Reach out if you need anybody, because, like you said, we're all here.
We'll see.
William, are you still here, or is that
I think
William's cut out again.
Am I stopping the live? Are we going to say bye?
Well, we'll just say bye.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye,
Have a great Christmas.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.